Welcome to The Explainer. We tend to think about our health in pretty personal terms, right? Like diet, exercise, our genes. But what if the single biggest factor influencing how we feel was something much, much bigger? Today, we're going to look at our own health through a totally different lens, an ecological one, and see how our story is deeply connected to the story of our planet.
This idea from the scientist Vernadsky way back in 1945 is the perfect place to start. His point was that nothing on this planet lives in a bubble. We are all fundamentally connected to the world through the very air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat. So we're not just living in an environment, we're an inseparable part of it.
Okay, so if we're all caught in this invisible web of life, what happens to our own health when the threads of that web start to fray or even break? That's the big question we're going to dive into.
To really get our heads around this, we have to start with the basics. And believe it or not, the word ecology itself gives us the perfect clue.
The word ecology actually comes from the ancient Greek word oikos, which means house or home. So when we talk about ecology, we're not talking about some distant, complicated science. We're literally talking about the study of our home. That simple fact just makes it all so much more personal, doesn't it?
So what is this home of ours? Well, it's pretty much everything outside of our own bodies. You can think of it in two layers. The macro environment is the big stuff, the global climate, forests, oceans, and the microenvironment is what's right around us, our houses, our neighborhoods, our workplaces. And here's the kicker. This external world is directly responsible for millions of diseases that are totally preventable.
All right, let's zoom in a little bit. From the big idea of an environment to the actual machinery that makes it all tick, the ecosystem.
An ecosystem is basically a community where everything depends on everything else. You've got all the living species and the physical environment they're in, the water, the soil, the air, all woven together in this complex web. And that word, interdependent, is so important.
And here's the engine that powers that whole community. It all starts with the sun. Plants capture that solar energy. Then, animals come along and eat the plants, and other animals eat them. It's a huge energy transfer system. But at the same time, all the essential stuff, nutrients, water, the air we breathe, is being constantly recycled and renewed. It's this amazing, self-sustaining cycle.
Now, these services that nature provides aren't just some nice-to-have abstract concepts. They have a real, tangible economic value. In fact, a famous study from 1997 tried to put a price tag on what nature does for us for free. The numbers they came up with were just staggering. I mean, look at soil formation alone, valued at over $17 trillion a year.
And when you add everything up, the grand total came out to more than $33 trillion annually. To put that into perspective, that was more than the combined economic output of every country on Earth at the time. It's a number that's almost impossible to wrap your head around, and it shows just how fundamentally we rely on these free services.
This whole idea of a planet that regulates itself, that provides all these services, well, it leads to a really fascinating and pretty controversial theory that takes this concept to a global scale.
I mean, just think about that for a second. What if our planet isn't just a giant rock with life on it? What if the Earth, in a way, is a living thing itself?
This is the core of the Gaia hypothesis, proposed by the scientist James Lovelock in the 70s. He suggested that all the living things and the non-living parts of our planet are all working together as one giant self-regulating system. This superorganism, as he called it, uses feedback loops to keep conditions stable and suitable for life, kind of like how our own bodies work to maintain a steady temperature.
Now, to be clear, the Gaia hypothesis has plenty of critics. It's really hard to test scientifically, and people have a lot of questions. But here's the thing. Whether you see it as literal science or as a powerful metaphor, the core idea is undeniable. It forces you to see our planet as a single, deeply interconnected system. And as Lovelock warned, it's a system that can get sick, that can develop a morbid fever if it's pushed too hard.
So what happens when that system does fail? When that delicate balance gets thrown off? Well, we don't have to imagine it. History gives us some pretty terrifying warnings.
This is not a new problem. Far from it. This is a pattern we see again and again throughout human history. From ancient Mesopotamia to the Roman Empire, from the Middle Ages to today, there is a clear, brutal link between ecological breakdown and major crises in human health.
Let's just take the Black Death. We tend to think of it as just a medical event, right? But it was fundamentally an ecological one. The bacteria that caused it thrived because the environmental conditions were just right for it. You had sewage in the streets,
overcrowded cities, and new trade routes that acted like highways for infected rats. It was a total perfect storm.
And this all leads to a really profound way to think about health, summed up perfectly by the biologist René Dubos. He said health isn't just about not being sick, it's about our fitness, how well we're adapted and living in harmony with our environment. So if the environment suffers, it's inevitable that our health will too.
Okay, so that brings us to today, to our shared future. And the challenge in front of us is absolutely massive. How do we manage our global home when our population is exploding and putting an incredible strain on every single one of these natural systems?
I mean, just look at this chart. It really puts it into perspective. From 1950 to 2025, basically a single human lifetime, the world's population will have more than tripled. Every single one of those people needs food, water, and energy, which puts more and more pressure on the very ecosystems that provide those things.
So, after all of that, what's the biggest piece of the puzzle when it comes to our health? Is it our genes? Our lifestyle choices? Our access to doctors? Nope. The answer is pretty stunning. A mind-boggling 80% of human health is determined by our environment. Let that sink in. 80%.
And this reveals a huge paradox in how we deal with health. We know the best approach is prevention, managing those environmental root causes before they make us sick. But all the glamour, the media attention, and a lot of the funding, it tends to go to the high-tech cures after the damage is already done.
But our real first line of defense, it's all of this. It's the unglamorous, often invisible, but absolutely crucial work of environmental health management. Things like ensuring clean water, dealing with waste, controlling pollution, and making sure our food is safe. This is the bedrock. This is the primary shield that protects us all on a massive scale.
So we'll leave you with this final thought. We've seen how deeply our own health is tied to the health of our planet. The last question isn't a big, abstract one. It's personal. In what ways could the ongoing damage to our shared ecosystem threaten your health and the health of the people you love? It's something we all really need to think about.